Okay. All right, baby. Avery. We're recording. We're live. We're laying it down with Big D. I got Avery Duncan here, admin and frag personnel extraordinaire. Avery, can you introduce yourself a little bit for us?
I'm Avery Duncan. As you said, I work with Frag. I work with a company called Sonics. I work with a million other people in the industry. Yeah,
Okay. How did you get involved with frag to begin with? We'll start there because we're gonna because I know you're not just a Counter Striker and are a lover of all esports, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah. I actually got involved with Frag. I had my own esports organization called Levitate Esports. And I'd been around for a really long time, and eventually it finally came to let's go to LAN. And I ended up at Frag 15. That was my first big LAN, and that is probably my favorite LAN experience of all time. It's where I met a lot of the people that have made my career today. Um, yeah, so it's just been a whirlwind since then.
And what exactly do you how did you transition from going to the land? Like, did you start out volunteering at Frag 15, or did you were there with your team, right?
Yeah, so I was originally bringing my teams, and originally it was a full team, and then it was a half team, and then it was all right, we're going. And slowly over time, I just got closer and closer to the frag guys, and then I was actually working with a company called Sonics, and we were a sponsor for the event. And that actually started at the beginning of this circuit when frag came back. Um, and they'd known me for a long time at that point, and a lot of the players knew me, so it wasn't like I was a no one coming in. I would walk in and hi cat. I would walk in and a million people would shake my hand and say hi. And over time, they just saw how I worked. They saw how I committed and put more work in than anyone else around me. And they asked me to come on and work a little more and more.
That's sick. I mean, yeah, I think that's something that I noticed and wished I had done more when I was there my first time around to like prove I'm worth my salt or whatever. But like those guys are definitely rewarding the people that are there to work. Like they appreciate
Mhm.
they appreciate the people that are there to work. So if you say go volunteer for frag at some point, which you definitely should, make sure that you go there to work and not play too much because baby, you'll have fun the entire time you're working. Do you I mean like isn't that one of the weird things? Do you ever feel like even though you're down there for like 80 hours in 4 days, does it ever actually feel like work to you?
Um, there's times it does, and there's times that it doesn't. I've had the easiest days of my career at Frag where I sat down and I did just about nothing because everything worked. And I've had the worst day of my working career at a Frag where nothing worked and I was still working for the sponsor company, and it wasn't a good day. It was actually a very bad day, and I left at about 6 because we just stopped using the software entirely.
Oof.
Yeah,
Is
it
that
was bad.
so what is Sonics? Garcon, get out of the shot.
Yeah. So Sonics is the easiest way to describe it to you is it's a lot like Discord. It's a social media platform that's also a communication platform for communities. Um, it started out as a music company, and it made a lot of waves in Europe. The entire idea around it was we had found a way to forward data over the internet faster than anybody else in the world, and we still have that technology today. Where Discord was going to take 1,500 milliseconds from California to Georgia, and TeamSpeak, if you had a server in Houston, it was going to take 350 milliseconds from California to Georgia. For Sonics, it was going to take between 30 and 50 milliseconds. Um, it was a pretty big leap. So it all started with that, and they transitioned from music to gaming, and they brought me on to kind of be the expert and the leader in the field of this is a good idea. This is how you growth hack. This is how you work with a million people. This is how the industry actually works. These are the things that you might have seen online. They don't actually exist. That is completely a falsehood made up by news companies to try to bring in more people to the industry. Um, and yeah, so at this point, it's a million different things. It's a marketplace. It's a way for organizations to actually still profit in a world where profit doesn't exist in a revenue sharing platform. And it's a way for you to create avatars. It's a way for you to personalize your avatars. It's a way to be a community hub. It's a way to be in calls. It's a way to do whatever you want.
Well, we're not sponsored by them here at Laying It Down with
No.
Big D, but I'm definitely gonna have to check them out because my goodness, what are they doing anything down there that can make my Counter-Strike ping a little faster and not make me ping 50 to every Face It server known to man from Southern Arizona? Looking at you, Face It.
We could look at it. We could look at it.
Okay, good. All right. Well, so I said earlier that you I know you've worked in multiple esports, but like, is Counter-Strike the original thing? How did you get started in esports?
So I actually started playing Rocket League competitively. I started a long time ago, back in 2015, and I was only competitive in RLCS one. Past that, it didn't exist. I was not good. I was good when jumping and hitting the ball was probably the best mechanic that existed. Um, and very quickly after RLCS one, I got outpaced and left in the dust. But again, I'm 22 now. I was not old. I was a very young snap.
You still are a young buck. Don't fool yourself now.
I try to stay there. But a lot of my friends then were part of that industry. I mean, when you spend so much time at such a young age there, you don't really make friends elsewhere. You make friends where you are. Um, so I just stayed in contact with my friends. I kept a lot of friends, and that was during what I would say was the most dangerous part of esports, which was where you had 14-year-olds signing 5-year contracts for $200 a month that had no release clauses and no power to the player. And you were just seeing people come in and get absolutely toasted. I mean, they had no chance. They had no opportunity to not be left crying in their room. Um, so I understood contracts a little better back then. I had already been doing a lot of things like working in legal, working in gaming, just things that are where I could work. So I started to understand things a lot faster than the people that were playing, because the people that were playing were putting in what I was putting in. They were putting in 120 hours a week, not stop playing. Um, and so they would start to show me their contracts and ask me questions and make sure that things were correct and see what they should have been asking for. And slowly I became kind of an agent, and then started working with the organizations. But a lot of these organizations were huge, and they were backed by VC money, and it was people that weren't endemic to gaming that didn't care that they were ruining 14-year-old kids' lives. And I started to go, well, wait, I can do this affordably, because again, it was $200 a month per player, and I was working a full-time job back then. Um, Again, $200 a month per player, that's coverable, and I'd like to be able to do this myself. I mean, it'd be a great time. So I started my own organization. I went through 3 organizations before I got to the one that stuck around. Um, but yeah, I mean, it all started in Rocket League. It all started right then, right there, and since then it's been kind of a whirlwind.
And then, I mean, it's interesting listening to it feels like what you said is a microcosm of what's been one of the major issues in video gaming since its inception in the arcades in the 80s and whatnot is how do we exploit these teenagers who love these
Yep.
things by, I try to always hope that it's not as sinister as you think and it's people that think they're doing the right thing or whatever. But like at the same time, after being around it for 30 years myself, I'm like, our entire industry is highly exploitative of underage people who don't have like a good, like, it's not that they're dumb. I don't want to call like teenagers and kids dumb, but like I know how I was when I was 18 years old. I did not think about 5 years ahead of me very well, let alone 10, 20 years down the line, right? Like, and there definitely feels like there's a very predatory practice by a lot of people in our industry. Like, do you feel like it is a predatory thing on purpose, or is it something that's far more complex and nuanced that hopefully it's
I
not as
feel like
sinister?
I feel like it's dynamic. I feel like there are sinister people out there. I mean,
Sure, it's not black and white.
not to say all money is bad money, because not that I come from all money, but I've worked with people with all money. And I've worked directly for people with all money and been the head of a company that was from people from all money. And it's not that everyone comes in with bad intentions. Some people come in with good intentions but do it poorly. Some people come in with bad intentions but do it well, and then they look like they came in with good intentions. Um, it really just comes down to what actually happened. So I do think there are bad people out there. I think we've seen a lot of bad actors, and I think a lot of them have been ousted. I think that big VC bubble we had was a big tell of people came in, they got really excited, but they went, "Oh my God, how much return can I get? How many more people can I exploit and then make people move to LA and then they just don't have a job in a month? This is so fun." Um, but then we've seen very good people get ousted as well. I mean, I would even qualify a brand like Oxygen. It was all people that have been in the industry for a very long time, and it's not that they tried to screw everyone, but people got screwed over. So I don't think it's a pandemic. I don't think it's necessarily a hate pandemic around the globe that everyone wants to take advantage of these teenagers while they compete and try to make their dreams happen. I think it's more like everyone's coming in to try to make some money. Even if you don't want to make money off of people, you still have to make money to survive. And if you're just losing money, it's not a good business practice. So at some point, that kind of has to look like you're somewhat taking advantage of someone to make the money that comes with being a business. If that makes sense. I don't know if that came
Yeah.
over well.
I mean, I think simply put, and not to like go deep into how we feel about any socioeconomic structures, but the lines between ethics and profit often have to get somewhat blurred for something to happen, right? And life is all about finding balance. So I do think it's interesting that, yeah, it's really easy from the outside in to like look at it and be like, oh, these nasty old men are taking advantage of these young stupid kids or whatever, right? Like, it's not that. It's like we're all on the very like, even 40, 50 years into our industry, we're all on the very ground floor of something. And esports, especially as a spectator sport, as a marketed brand, as a competition, whatever it is still trying to find its footing and is going through these
100%.
ups and downs. So yeah, I don't think it's anything as sinister as like bad people. There's plenty of bad actors, like you said, but yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think there's just more education for young people and further generations as we learn and grow from everything. Now, how did you let me segue here? How did you go from Rocket League to your investment in Counter-Strike? What brought you over to
Yeah.
Counter-Strike? What are your first memories?
Um, really, it comes with that final brand. It comes with Levitate. Levitate went from Rocket League to it started to step into COD, and then it started to step into a million things. And my earliest memory of Counter-Strike is, I believe I was 11 or 12 years old. I was one neighborhood over in my best friend at the time's house. Um, and this is actually, funnily enough, the same time I saw the first ad I ever saw for Rocket League. But I was in his house and he was, I mean, we would just go over and we'd hang out and we'd play video games and he was just playing Counter-Strike. He had a big PC back then. I didn't. Not that I was born way early for a big PC, but I was young and didn't come from money. And he didn't necessarily come from big money, but he definitely had a good bit of it and was just able to have a nice PC. So yeah, I mean, it was just him playing, and I really enjoyed watching, and it made me look into it more and more and more and more and more. And I started watching Twitch streams, I started watching YouTube, I started doing everything. And this is the same time I'm doing a million other things. Watching everybody else I possibly can. But yeah, no, I just started to really love Counter-Strike, and I think I was slowly drawn to Counter-Strike more and more the more I spent time within esports itself. I mean, by the time I was 15, 16, I I had a decent understanding of how the world worked within gaming, and I had a good understanding of how I liked it to work. Um, I mean, the same time I stepped into Counter-Strike was the same time the Overwatch League existed, and League of Legends was at its, I would say, probably almost peak.
Has it
Um,
fallen off
where
since?
uh, League, it's not rising anymore.
Okay.
I not to insult anybody that's associated with League, but it's
No, all my
definitely not
homies hate League of Legends. We're
prestigious.
about Counter-Strike
Ah.
on this channel. Up until
um,
I get Faker where you're sitting, then we'll be big fans of.
then it's all
Yeah,
League.
then it's all
Uh,
League. But until Faker comes to lay it down, all my homies hate League. Sorry, go on.
no, you're good. So yeah, no, this is the same time that League was at its big peak, and they were doing their big franchise leagues, and Overwatch League existed, and this was like Overwatch League was launching. I remember when I got Overwatch because Overwatch League launched. Um, and they were cool, they were great, but they required so much money. I mean, I remember I was 15, 16. I had Levitate, and I was sitting there like, all right, these are great things happening. How can I start to get associated? I'd love to be a part of these massive movements. And then I got told, actually, you need $200 million. Oh, that sucks.
Yep.
All right, that's horrible. In fact, then Rocket League was not the format that it is now. Rocket League had RLRS, it had RLCS. Those were the two leagues it had. It was completely publisher ran. Um, Basically, you qualified for RLRS through qualifier tournaments. You spent the league there. If you hit the top, you went into RLCS. If you stayed in the middle, you just stayed. And if you went to the bottom, you were out. And it was time to try again. And RLCS was kind of the same way. It was if you hit the top, it was playoffs. Middle stayed. Bottom went down to RLRS. It was Rocket League Rival Series. And I loved that entire way that worked because you didn't need $200 million to step into Rocket League. You needed maybe a few hundred, and to get really, 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 really damn lucky with the people you chose. But I had some really good people surrounding me. So it was very much the same way stepping into Counter-Strike. I looked into the ecosystem. I figured out, okay, what's the path from A to B? How do I go from, okay, I have nothing. I have no equity in the market. I have no brand recognition in the market to, all right, I'm stepping into Pro League. And Counter-Strike actually had a system where I could do it. I didn't have to instantly pay for a franchise league. This was probably just before Blast and ESL were doing their big partner leagues. I don't know if they were doing it at that point or not. So yeah, I mean, it was very much just, all right, this is how I like to work. This is how I like to do things. I can do things kind of moneyball and buy in, grow my way in, step from open to intermediate, then I jumped to advanced. Then I had an ECL roster that was one of the biggest ECL rosters that existed back then. And I was always consistently punching Pro League. And yeah, no, I mean that's really how it started. It was studying what ecosystem worked and how I liked it to work.
Okay. And then so we heard the story earlier that that's how you got involved with Frag was you finally got
Mhm.
to go to LAN. How'd you guys do at your
Yep.
first LAN? What was that experience like for you going as a you were an owner, but like were you coaching, were you playing
Yes.
at all, or what was your
I was
involvement?
not coaching or playing. I have a sign right here. Hold on. I have a bunch of signs. I was a cheerleader.
I was a cheer. Let's
Uh,
go.
oh.
Hell yeah. And those are all
I
ESEA
have
signs
all of these
too.
signs. Yeah, yeah. These are from Frag. These are from that original Frag. They
Oh,
just sit right next to my desk.
that's brilliant.
Yeah. No, I was a cheerleader. I really went because it was it was my first chance to be a part of something big. When I was Atlanta 2017, right? I think that was the year. It might have been 2018. That was the Atlanta major. I was too young to go. I barely knew about Counter-Strike. God, I wish I had, because that would have been awesome. I live in Atlanta. But that was my chance. And I lost that one. So it was, all right, how do I get to an event now? All right, this is affordable and I can go there and be invested in something and maybe make some money back. And then we did. It was like I think it was like a fifth, sixth, maybe a seventh, eighth. It was a big land and we did really well in it. So yeah, no, I mean it was just worlds collided, things made sense. I went
And then how many more lands did you go to before you were working them?
probably like five, I would say. Not an incredible amount. I mean it was just when I had the money to send people to things, I did my best too.
I want you to know it looks like on from our angle there's just a booger hanging out of my nose this whole time, by the way. But I promise it's not. I've cleared it out for you. I just want to clear that up for both you and maybe anybody back home. These aren't flattering angles that we do for laying it down with Big D, but it's been on my
Oh, I
mind.
look horrible
No,
on the first one.
no, you look professional, comfortable, right at home. That's what we want for laying it down is total comfort. Uh, okay, so I've only got one or two more questions here, but I definitely take your time elaborating on them. I I'm a West Coast Counter Striker, okay? And West Coast Counter Strike, weirdly enough, like in esports, like you said, and I've talked to Dannon about this before as well. You know, you get them out to LA eventually, right? Like that's where you want the gaming houses or boot camping if you're doing it here in America. If you're not going to go to EU to boot camp, but at this point, it feels like all of Counter Strike, especially the LAN scene, exists more in the Midwest to East Coast side of things. We know that Frag Vegas is coming up here in April, which is going to be really exciting. You know you're going to see Big D down there. It's only a few hour drive for me. But
Yeah.
My question is do you see the LAN do you see the LAN scene expanding, not necessarily just for Fragadelphia? I think that as time goes on, Fragadelphia is going to start inspiring more LANs around. We see Laundry's LAN. Do you see that LAN scene starting to expand across the country, or do you think that it will kind of remain on its hub of the East Coast, which is kind of where it's lived, and the best advice for younger players is try to go to school out on the East Coast eventually?
Um, I wouldn't say pick your college due to Counter-Strike unless you're going to college
Unless you're
with a
going to Fisher,
Counter-Strike
right?
scholarship. Yeah, unless you're going with a Counter-Strike scholarship, I would go to the school that makes sense. Let's be very real about that. Um, but no, okay. When I was younger, I would have said 100% we're gonna see people expanding out west. It makes total sense. Why wouldn't there be? I'm I'm less inclined to believe that that's the truth now. For a few reasons. I mean, I've been around for a while and I've seen a lot of people go a ton of different places. I've seen a lot of I've seen the rise of LAN cafes and I've seen the downfall of LAN cafes. Again, I live in Atlanta. I saw the rise of Access Replay and I saw Access Replay completely get decimated and it doesn't exist anymore. And it was, I think, the most expensive LAN cafe in America. I think that's the truth. But no, I there are a few companies that do things out there. You're just gonna have to, if you don't want to travel across the country, buckle for lower competition. Um, and that just means going to things like Nerd Street. That just means going to things that maybe are a little less prestigious in Counter-Strike. They're not less worthy. I mean, you see Valorant doing really big with Nerd Street, and even events like LANFest if you really just want to get involved with gaming in general instead of esports. But for esports specifically, especially with Counter-Strike, the Midwest, there aren't people there. To say it bluntly,
Can confirm.
There are a million people in New York. There are a million people in Nebraska. You know, it's
Nebraska's like
and I'm talking
at
New
least
York
three
City
times bigger than New
versus
York City, by the way.
at least.
At least three
Um,
times bigger.
at least. No, but if you look at the demographic of where people are and what it costs to get to where, the East Coast just makes so much more sense. I mean, we chose Kansas City for the last big frag. Not that I had the biggest choice in it, but I was sitting in the room and I was able to listen. And the reason Kansas City was chosen was a good few reasons. A, we wanted to do it in Philly or in New York, but Philly was going to cost half $100,000 to $100,000, and New York was going to cost $100,000. And that's just talking about the venue.
Right.
That's not talking about any of the people we actually do have to pay at these events. That's not talking about players getting there and being able to afford attending these events. It's expensive, right? Kansas cost a fraction of that for the venue. And that was because of one of our big connections, but you use your connections when you can get them. Along with that, it's a big thought on how much it costs to travel and stay in the city. In New York, if we were to bring everyone out there, it would cost $600 to $800 each for a plane ticket, and probably $800 a night for a stay. That's a lot of money for 5 kids that want to come out and prove their merit against the best. That's costing you, I mean, we're looking at $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. That's a lot of money for a weekend. That's a lot of money for a weekend.
To go get stomped in
Philly.
Counter-Strike by the best players in the game.
To go out in the first day.
Yeah.
Like, that's a horrible time. You don't want to do that. In Philly, it's a little better, right? It probably costs me when I go, let's say a $400 plane ticket. I live in Atlanta. I have very nice travel, but even to Philly, it's pretty expensive because everything out there is really, really expensive. Um, we can even bring that down to 300. But the stay alone is going to cost 250 a night minimum. And again, 5 people. Let's say we all live in very, very travel friendly cities. You're looking at that's 1,500 plus. You're probably looking at $2,500. A lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Kansas, it cost me 150 to get out there on a plane. It didn't cost me 150 because I got screwed over by Delta, but that's all right. But it costs about 150 to 200 to get on a plane. We'll call it 150 for the ease of math because it probably falls right in the middle of that. Um, that's 5 people, 300, 600, 750. And the stay, hell, I picked up a Airbnb for $80 last time I was out there. Let's say we picked it up for all 5 people. It's going to be a little bigger, right? We'll call it 160, 200 a night. We'll call it 200 a night. We call it 4 nights. Yeah, 4 nights. That's only $800. That means 1,600 at most to send the team out there before the team pass, versus either 2,500 to 3,000 or 9,000.
Right.
You really have to look at the economics of getting places, and this is all to circle back around to getting to the West Coast is expensive. Most Counter-Strike players live on the East Coast. To get out to the West Coast and do something in Seattle, which is something that we've looked at, do something in California, which is something that we've done many times. Do something even Las Vegas is different because it's the casinos pay for you to get on the plane. But to get out there, I mean, when I fly out to LA, it cost me $800. Again, I live at the biggest airport in the world. It cost me $800.
And it's still
600
wildly
if I'm
expensive.
doing a decent. Yeah, that's absurd. That is insane.
God, you're going to get me worked up about these airlines. Don't start with me right now.
No, but it really just comes down to economics. So, yeah, it'd be great if we could just kind of do a tour. But when you're someone like Frag, and your entire business isn't necessarily to profit, but you gotta break even, which means you have to sell team passes. I need 32 teams there. If it cost them $500, that's 5,000, 15, 16,000, right? If I only sell 15 team passes, I'm only at $7,500. That's bad. That's really bad. That means I'm losing money on this event. I'd love, this is me speaking as Mr. Frag, I'd love to be able to do things everywhere I can, but the economics of it just hurt your chances. You just don't get the opportunity to do everything you want to. This comes back to everyone's got to make a buck somewhere. Again, almost everyone at Frag is a volunteer. There are very few people we actually hire to go out there. The people that we do hire are the highest experts in their field, and the only reason we're hiring them is because the event can't run without them. Period.
Right.
And yeah, no, you've got to look at the economics of things. So getting out to the Midwest, getting out to the West Coast, it's great in theory. I'd love to do it all the time if we could. Realistically, though, you've really got to look at where the money is. And if that means the only West Coast land we can do is in Vegas, hell, let's do it in Vegas. Because last time I went to Vegas, it cost me $60 to get on that plane.
What?
I think it cost me $40 a night to stay in a hotel. Because the casinos just want you there. They just do. So everything is discounted because you know where they make their money? slots.
Yep.
They make it on roulette. They make it on Texas Hold'em. They make it on having a 3% take from every single pot. They don't make it from the travel to Las Vegas. That would be stupid. Yeah, no, you really just got to look at the local economy and what's happening around there.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. That's what I figured it is. Because I've now that I've been to Philadelphia and I've talked to all these guys there that are putting it on, I know the passion to want to try to do a Philadelphia event every month at some new place across America would be thrilling. But like they're operating this entire event and holding North American Counter-Strike together at a loss, like for the most part, from my understanding. Like,
Mhm. Yep.
they're doing it literally out of the kindness of their hearts and passion for the game. And obviously, I'm sure there's a hope that with the correct investment in the scene, something grows and they're able to see a more profitable end and do what we're talking about. But all right, well, I got one last question here for you, Avery.
Please.
Because I know I don't know if you guys know this. At the time of recording, it is Christmas Eve, so we've got Christmas Avery with Avery. I came up with that earlier. Rolls off the tongue.
Thanks.
6 out of 10, I think. All right. Anyway,
That's decent.
my last question for you here is, what words of advice? This is kind of a general statement. It can be about esports. It can be about life. It could be about whatever the hell you want it to be about. Okay. What would
Sure.
what's your advice for the next generation of gamers? And I'm not talking about the like current. I'm talking about like the current 14-year-old and down, like the ones that are going to
Sure.
be growing up.
Sure. This is something I love talking about, actually. I've worked in gaming full time for 3 years. It's very rare to be able to say that. The NFL is worth $400 billion. Esports itself is worth about 3. I think that's a pretty powerful statement right there. Esports is something that if you're passionate about it, I want you to do it. But when people come to me and they say, hey, I want to play. Hey, I want to work in esports. How do I start? Really, it comes down to go volunteer. Go do your own thing. I did it. I did it when I was 14 years old. You can do it. You're 20. Do it. Go do it. Have fun. Go to have an absolute blast. Don't go in wanting to make profit. Go in wanting to have a blast and to learn. If you go in wanting to make profit, you won't. If you go in wanting to make this your career, you better have a damn good resume. 300 people in the US have a full-time job in esports. That's not in gaming. Gaming is a much bigger industry. Gaming has game developers. Gaming has game adjacent companies. They have a million different job positions. Esports is very different. Esports has about 300 full-time jobs in America. If you want to do it, all power to you. Do it 100%. But if you're not willing to take, at minimum, half the pay of anywhere else that you would be doing the same exact job with the same exact title and put in double the hours of a regular full-time job. At my peak, I was working 90, 100 hours a week. I was not home at minimum every 2 weeks. I mean, I was in LA, I was in Chicago, I was in Boston, I was in wherever in the world I needed to be, Switzerland. It's a lot of time. If you look at gaming and you're like, this is what I want to do. This is everything to me. Every single time I wake up, I think about a different way I could change things. Please, we want you. We want you here because that is That's who made gaming happen. I mean, and I say made gaming happen like it's not still happening, but there was a time when there wasn't one full-time job in gaming. Now there's now there's 300. Who knows what's going to be here for esports in 5, 10 years? I don't. Nobody does. There's times where we go, oh no, it's over. Oh, we're so back. It's the same thing as gambling. Oh my God, we've made it all. Oh no, we lost it all. No, it really just comes down to if you have a passion for it and you're willing to cry at night because things didn't work, or willing to go out and spend the rest of your money on a karaoke bar because that's how you're going to network with the right people, do it. 100%. Please do it. We want you. But if this is just fun, if this is just cool, if it's just something that seems interesting, volunteer. Have fun. Be a part of the community. Don't risk your entire life on it. The other thing I would say is if you're going to college for gaming and your goal is to be in the esports industry, don't go into esports management, please, or something adjacent to that. Go into go into the real world equivalent of that job that you want. Go be a data analyst. Go be a business manager, right? Go do something that is very equivalent to the real world because these companies that work in esports, I mean, I could name so many different esports organizations right now that have completely fired every single endemic person and gone, all right, I want to go hire from Dell. I want to go hire from Microsoft because you know what those guys do? They know how to turn a profit. And you know
Right.
what my job is? To make a profit. Stop focusing on the fact that, oh my God, look at this new thing. Oh my God, it's so awesome. I do the same job that someone that got a business administration degree does. Full stop. Go get a business administration degree. Go get a degree in marketing. Don't get a degree in esports marketing because you're going to pigeonhole yourself. There's going to be 3 people that can hire you, and it takes, at minimum, 40 applications before you get your first interview in America. That is a real statement. So 3 of 40 is not a great equivalent. Don't pigeonhole yourself. If you want to make this your life, do it. I implore you, please do it. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Don't ruin your life over it. This is a great industry. It's a lot of fun. I met Big D. I love Big D. And I was at the last frag. But if you pigeonhole yourself and you make it so that you can never actually work anywhere else, you're not going to have a very fun life. Be careful. Don't overextend yourself. It's a very dangerous market out there. I think that's all I really have to say about people that want to work in it. If you want to work in it, great. Do it. But if you don't, or if you want to, but it's not everything in your life and it doesn't run through your veins, don't ruin your life over it.
The major message I'm getting from you here, Avery, is it's not profitable and it's not profitable anytime soon. However,
The
it
ship
will
is
have to
sinking.
be but it won't because of the fact there are so many people that are passionate about esports.
Mhm.
Just understand that if you're getting into this right now, you're doing volunteer work and you're doing it
Yep.
because you're passionate about it. And there is no special person that is just making some ridiculous buku bucks off of anything. They are
There
doing
are.
it also even at like there are, that's the hard part, is there are the people that have been in it, but these are the people that have been in it investing that time for 10, 15, 20 years already versus the people that have been getting into it in the last 5, 6, 7 years, like
I think the best way that I can bring it around and relate it to what you just said is the people that are making buku bucks are the ones that went to college and got a degree in a related field in the real world and then brought their experience that they acquired in the real world to gaming. If you started in gaming, we have some really bad practices here,
Yeah.
and you're going to train yourself in a very wrong way.
Yep.
Yeah, no, not to be the big doomer, but yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of volunteer work. You're going to have a lot of passion for it.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it won't grow someday and that we can make it better for future generations, though. All right, well, Avery, it's been real and it's been fun. And I would even say it's been real fun as well. So thank you for joining me here on Laying It Down with Big D. I'm going to get up and